with Amazon obviously buying Whole Foods and Amazon Business being a top 20 B2B distribution player, this is a real thing. E-commerce is not a platform. We've spoken about this many, many times because you're not letting in competition. You're not letting in the food space. That would be other small mom and pop food distributors or wholesalers. The food distribution industry, interesting space. This is kind of on the flip side. We're not talking about B2C anymore. We're talking about B2B. As of 2015, there was an estimated 16,500 food service distribution companies in the U.S. with about $270 billion in revenue. The biggest players here you can see Sysco, U.S. Foods, PFG, Gordon Food Service, and the list goes on.
Fairly consolidated at the top.
Fairly consolidated at the top, right? Sysco and U.S. Foods tried to merge a few years ago. That got shot down.
Yep.
Definitely the strongest number one and number two players. But there's so much fragmentation in this industry, and especially with the fresh products in the space. I mean, it's very hard to actually, I feel like, have the traditional B2B distribution model cater to the needs of all the different customer groups, particularly the smaller customers.
The other issue there is price transparency. A lot of these distributors don't have very transparent pricing. So what I do as a customer, if I own a restaurant, I'm going to have a few of these guys that I'll reach out to and try to get prices. And, if I feel like one guy's not giving me a good price this week, I'm going to go switch it up. So there's this lack of transparency in the market that creates fragmentation, because basically if I'm operating a food business, I'm going to want a stable of these guys to serve me, because if it's only one, then because of that lack of transparency, eventually I'm going to get taken advantage of.
And a principal here, at Applico, Tree Tran, founded Munchery, a platform for food delivery meal kits and the sort, penned an article on TechCrunch last year about this same opportunity where we are seeing B2B marketplaces prop up all across the B2B distribution space. And so He goes into much more detail about how something like this could start with maybe fresh food or the like of it. Now, the interesting thing is that with Amazon obviously buying Whole Foods and Amazon Business being a top 20 B2B distribution player, this is a real thing. And Amazon Business is big in MRO and like medical supplies and different things like that.
They do food service too, but at the moment it's more like supplies and equipment, not fresh produce.
Right. And so I think there's going to be a convergence basically between the Whole Foods folks, the Amazon Business folks coming together and going after these big B2B food distribution places with a true marketplace approach. So that'll be interesting to see. Basically what happens, whether it's a food distributor, is they do e-commerce. And then they say e-commerce is a platform. Problem is, e-commerce is not a platform. We've spoken about this many, many times. Why is it not a platform? Because you're not letting in competition. You're not letting in the food space. That would be other small mom and pop food distributors or wholesalers. Right. That would be these mom and pop local, like fresh food, gourmet, maybe organic food distributors.
Often what you'll see is these companies, if they do let in third parties, it's like, let's partner with 1, 2, maybe a handful of these distributors that cover stuff that we don't cover. So, we can get a handful of more SKUs and different types of products, but you're not really getting that marketplace value prop. We talked about this last week with kind of this faux marketplaces you've seen in retail. You started to see companies looking at this kind of stuff, doing similar things in food distribution. No one's really gone after this marketplace opportunity.
Yeah. And if you're the big B2B distributor, that means you need to open yourself up to oftentimes some of your fiercest competition, which are the small,
on a local level, certainly.
Yeah, mom and pop distributors and wholesalers. And that can be scary, but the problem is it's inevitable. And if you don't do it, literally Amazon's already doing it, or eBay, Walmart, and Alibaba, depending on the vertical that you're in.
Walmart would be one to watch there, just given how much food makes up a portion of their business.
40% of Walmart's business.
Grocery and produce. And that would be an area where I could see them definitely going into B2B because Amazon's not already there.
I asked Doug McMillan about this a few months ago. I said, hey, Doug, love what you guys are doing with marketplaces, yada, yada, yada. B2B is a big place. I think you guys should really get in there and don't let Amazon just kind of go bonkers, and they need some competition. And he looks at me, deadpans me, and he goes, "It's great input, Alex. Thanks." And that was it. I mean, and then lo and behold, a month ago, they came out and said, oh, we're getting into B2B. So I don't think I gave them the idea, but they definitely are watching this space. And as we've talked about, I love Doug and Mark and the team they've got. Thanks for watching our latest clip. If you enjoy the content we're creating on Winner Take All, please feel free to leave us a comment, subscribe, and definitely join us on our next live stream.